Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 12, the finale of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. We are here at Thruxton for this evening in the 147 GTA. For the final time, we will be deploying this magnificent little front-wheel drive touring car there as we're on board with John Cole, finding the limits there, bouncing over the curbs, and yeah, enjoying his car. I am sure I haven't actually had the chance to commentate on Thruxton this year, the touring cars. I believe I missed that round with the GTA M, so good to see it here now. Lots of high-speed corners for these front-wheel drive high-end or high-power twin-spark cars to navigate, so should be a good one, that is for sure. Of course, the championship in the Pro Division pretty much settled. In fact, no, it is settled, going to Colin Knief there. And then we have an interesting battle actually in the AM running. Unfortunately, Guy Swarbrick not able to make it this evening, so he concedes this year's touring car championship in the AM running to either Rosie Hodson or Jack Hodson. It's going to be a sibling rivalry this evening, and we'll find out who comes out on top in that. As we're on board with John Coles, he is getting ready to come towards the end of a warm-up lap there, as we see Andrew Rammer getting out the way as some quicker cars head through there. Apologies, he wasn't coming towards the end of a warm-up lap, he was improving his time further still. The first driver into the 119s in qualifying then, as we've got 15 minutes to go in this session. He's about 0.4 of a second clear of Colin Knief at the moment. Colin Knief, I saw in practice, was actually dipping into the 119s, but hasn't found that in this session yet, so we'll join him in a second, as I'm sure he is getting ready to make that charge back towards John Cole there. So what a year it has been, of course, well, what a season it has been, rather, in the touring car running. We've had 4 different cars and a variety of 6 different tracks to run on. It has been excellent to find out how that dynamic really changes up the running order in terms of quality and race pace for some drivers. Some drivers more comfortable with certain combinations here, as we're on board with John Cole, still losing out just a little bit heading through the first sector, rather the second sector. Of course, we are a relatively short lap here, only 1 minute 20 in these 147 GTAs, as there is some lap traffic for it, or not lap traffic, apologies, there is some potentially slower traffic for him to navigate. No, it looks like Willingless is also on a fast lap, so he's not going to want to give up this position. One of my favourite characteristics, I must say, of these 147 GTAs, and something that we'll also see in the Giulietta TCR that we're going to be using next year, is when the back axle locks up or gets a little bit upset through some of the bends. It is you can imagine the expression on the driver's face as they become just a little bit unsettled when the back axle isn't quite behaving with the rest of the car there. As bad looks, I'm going to have a little bit of a battle forming up here in qualifying between Willingless and John Cole. John Cole desperate for a bit of clean air, a bit of clean tarmac up in front, but Willingless obviously doesn't want to give him that, doesn't have to give him that at all, as he's found 0.05 of a second actually, so he's certainly not going to abandon this lap. He's very much under pressure from John Cole here. The racing action has already started, ladies and gentlemen. We're not even through qualifying yet, and there is John Cole finding a way past there. I'm not sure if Willingless backed out to let that overtake happen, or if John Cole was really quite brave coming towards the end of sector 2 there, but for whatever reason it is John Cole who has now got a bit of clean air once again, has found 0.2 of a second in the first couple of sectors. He is absolutely flying at the moment, has a 1:19.6 to beat, and so far he's on track to do that, so we'll stay on board with him as he comes towards the end of this lap, and then we're going to jump on board with Colin Knief, as he has just set a blistering purple sector in sector 2 at 22.6 here, as we have just the final couple of corners, the club chicane to navigate now. We have done Thruxton, I do apologise, I can't remember what car exactly, but we have done, I was here for Thruxton, and there is John Cole coming across the line, a 1:19.5, so a nice improvement there. Finds another couple of tenths to make it just a little bit more difficult for Colin Knief, who we're on board with now, as he comes through the club chicane for one last time on this lap, and is going to come across the line. Will he take the provisional pole? No, he does not. He's got closer, he certainly has got closer into the 1:19s now, but still 0.4 of a second down on where he needs to be if he wants to find that premier spot on the front row of the grid there, but still a front row for Colin Knief at the moment, still very impressive indeed. Bit of an inversion on the usual livery, I believe. They're more orange than black, as who has gone off there? I believe that is the car of, is that Rosie Hodson? No, it's not. Who is that there? We'll go on board with, I don't think we have the option to go on board with them yet. I will have a look and tell you who it is. I believe, if I could, I can't quite work out who that is, unfortunately, but I'm sure We'll find out in just a few moments' time there, but so far qualifying not going amazingly well for them. Someone who it is going well for is Barry Clayton. Going to go on board with him. A 22.5 through the middle sector there. Was purple. That purple has just been taken away by Colin Keefe. Colin Keefe absolutely flying that car, leaning into the bend there, looking very racy indeed as he comes into the final sector now. 22.5 through the second sector, 26.6 his personal best for the first sector. This could be the lap that makes the difference now as we come down towards the club chicane once again, where we seem to really pick up all of the lap action. Of course, there isn't too much of a corner to speak of really after Noble as we come across the line, and it is going to be provisional pole for Colin Keefe by only 0.05 of a second, a 1:19.532, just beating out John Cole's 1:19.537. Now that is some very tight running at the front end of the field here. This is going to go on until the very end of the session, I feel, as we're going to go on board now with John Cole. Has he got a response on this lap? No, he hasn't, because he's currently on a warm-up lap. Let's see what John Cole what Colin Keefe rather does through the first sector, as I'm deciding to rearrange the UI at this stage in the season. Seems a bit of a shame to be making tweaks when we're coming to the very end of the season, but I've decided to do so anyway, as we're going to go on board now. I was going to go on board with Barry Clayton, but he seems to have abandoned his lap attempt. Looks very competitive through sector 2 indeed. I can imagine actually this is not that I am any form of engineer at all. I can imagine actually that this is a circuit which really shows the difference in setup here, with so many high-speed corners. It's really working out this front-wheel drive chassis as much as it can. So the likes of Church, Brooklands, maybe Goodwood as well, and then you've got the difference in setup. Oh, there's a bit of a back end escaping away from Colin Keefe there. That's one that he wants to watch out for. Maybe, as we're speaking about difference in setup, we're seeing quite an unstable rear end on Colin Keefe, so he's got a bit of a more aggressive car that likes to turn a little bit harder. We'll find out now as he comes across the line. This won't be a quick lap with that incident there, but he gets ready for another one now. But yeah, we've got a little bit of variety between the corners like Club and then corners like Church or Goodwood, where setup could really have its way with things here and make quite a difference in qualifying now. As we see, the two top runners, the only cars so far in the 1:19 and about half a second clear of anyone else at the moment. Andrew Whitehead, a 1:20.0. It's actually a very close midfield indeed. We're going to have a little focus on that in a second as we watch Colin Keefe come towards the end of sector 2. Goes personal best, but by only 1,000th of a second. Oh, the margins are oh so close in this, the final race of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. We've only got 0.05 of a second between the top two. We've got 1,000th of a second between Colin Keefe's personal best through sector 1. As he goes a little bit wider, that's not going to be his personal best in sector 2. He's enjoying a little bit of rallycross, as we haven't seen too much rallycross actually in this GTA Championship. So we'll have to see a little bit more happening once again. I am a multidisciplined racing commentator, as we going to go on board with Matt Daly. Actually, he's right in the middle of that midfield fight at the moment. Only 600th of a second separating him and Andrew Whitehead. Only 400th of a second separating him and Alan Matthews, and then only about 500th of a second separating him and Will Inglis, and then there's only a 10th to P7. So all to play for here in this qualifying session with just under 10 minutes to go now. This is really an example of just how excellent the racing has been throughout both championships so far this year, and hopefully the excellent racing carries on at National Alpha Day, which is coming up in early August, where we will have the sim racing van back once again. We're actually never mind, I'm going to stop talking about National Alpha Day, where we have the sim racing van. I'm going to talk about Matt Daly, who's just gone purple through sector 1. That came out of nowhere at 26.597, and so far it's been a relatively quiet qualifying for Matt Daly as it comes towards the end of sector 2. Now he has been in for a little bit longer than he usually is, and it's all gone wrong through sector 2 there. 23.0 through sector 2 means that this lap probably isn't going to be right up there with the best. But yes, it's quite interesting to see Matt Daly through an entire qualifying session for once. We usually don't see him until the very end. Usually somehow finds his way very high up in the order, as we see that back wheel locking up there as he enters Club, the right-hander, the very tight chicane there, and now comes towards down the start-finish rate down into Allard as well, where we have Matt Daly leapfrogging Andrew Whitehead into P3, into the 1:19s as well, but only by 6,000ths of a second. Once again, the thousands, the really important margins here, the 1,000th, 2,000th, maybe 5,000ths of a second, all to play for in this qualifying session so far. As we see Matt Daly bouncing over the curbs there. The car, I'm not too sure the other side will be very happy with him for that, as we seem to have a bit of an incident going on there. I believe that is Rosie Hodson. No, it's Jack Hodson who's had a bit of an incident. We can't go on board with him at the moment, unfortunately. Who can we go on board with? It seems to be we have a couple of drivers. We have Matt Daly carrying on. The car looked a little bit bouncy through the first sector, so let's see how he does in the rest of this lap. Will Inglis has actually, in all apologies, I've just missed that there, has matched Matt Daly's time, a 1:19.994 for Will Inglis. An absolutely fantastic lap there with a brilliant final sector as well. That's really what made the difference in that one, I think. There, but as I said, the margins are just so close in this qualifying session. It is all to play for. In fact, I'm just taking note of that now as we speak, because I can't remember last time we had such an interesting battle at the front end of the field in qualifying. So even though the championships are all pretty much buttoned up, everyone's still eager to go racing this evening. With just over 5 minutes to go in qualifying now, we are getting ready for the final round of this, the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. But Will Inglis has just about avoided finding a way into the nearest gardening centre there, and has managed to get back on the track. Still running P3 in the moment, but is going to have to abandon this lap. As we will stay on board with Will Inglis as he comes towards the end of what will be an abandoned lap and gets ready for another push as we enter the final 5 minutes in this qualifying session. As we have actually, let's have a look at the top speeds at the moment. It is definitely Colin Knief who comes out on top, 132.1 miles an hour, and close margins being the theme of this qualifying session. Next is John Cole with the 132.0. As we have a bit of an impact, I imagine, I believe, for Matt Daly and Steve Knight there. There's a bit of a collision, not sure what went on. Looks to be that was at Club, and Steve Knight, unfortunately, going off there, and I imagine he'll be abandoning the next lap as well. Someone else has gone off there. That was Alan Matthews by the looks of things. As we're going to go aboard once again with Will Inglis. Will Inglis really getting comfortable in this qualifying session, has set the most laps of anyone on track apart from Alan Matthews, and has now taken off. The Alfa Romeo Racing League space program is in full swing, ladies and gentlemen. We are exploring new heights. When I said we're going to take things to new heights, I didn't quite literally mean separating the axles from the rest of the car, and I imagine scaring Will Inglis a little bit, which is a great shame because he was going purple in Sector 1. 26.5 there, looking very competitive indeed, and that's an odd one. But we're ready to carry on anyway, as is Will Inglis, so that is great to see. And just to rub salt into that word, Colin Knief taking away that pole. I'll stop fumbling my words. Colin Knief taking away that purple Sector 1 from Will Inglis with a 26.458 as he gets ready to try and break away from John Cole because that is not a comfortable margin at all. Only 0.005 of a second separating those two cars. And Andrew Whitehead has really put a charge on here as Colin Knief goes 200th of a second faster through the first sector, but Andrew Whitehead now into the 119s as well finds 100th of a second there. That is quite a big margin in the top 5, would you believe it? That is quite close indeed. We're going to go back aboard with Colin Knief now, as I believe he's lost out a little bit in Sector 2. Let's see if he can claw it back here in Sector 3 now. Coming down the start-finish straight, they run up to Allard, where we have the first corner, that right-hander there, and it's not quick enough for Colin Knief, but only 0.004 of a second. He would have still had provisional pole there, but it's not enough to beat his personal best, unfortunately for him. Oh so close in this qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go back on board with Andrew Whitehead. Let's see what he can do as he comes towards the end of Sector 2 now. He's going to lose out a little bit, going to lose out by about a second actually, so I imagine he's going to abandon this attempt, or maybe try and recollect his thoughts for the next lap coming up in just a few seconds time for him now. Only 20 seconds ago. It is a very short lap indeed here at Thruxton. I was going to go on board with John Cole. Actually, John Cole not quite got the measure on Colin Knief through Sector 1 this time around. He's going to, I believe, going to ignore this lap pretty much. We're going on board with Will Inglis. A 29.9 through Sector 3 sees him go purple. Can he carry this momentum forward into the next lap? Can he take off once again? Can he possibly remain on the tarmac? That would be very helpful indeed if he wants to try and improve on his qualifying time now as he comes towards the end of Sector 1. Losing out by just a tenth. He can claw that back though in the next couple of sectors. Who's going to go on board. Actually, this is getting very eclectic indeed towards the end of qualifying. Only 2 minutes to go now, as we see Matt Daly going personal best through sector 1 at 26.5 as a Volvo C30 with a straight pipe is going past my house, making an obnoxious amount of noise. It's a diesel, mate. There's no need to brag about that. As he goes purple through sector 2 as well at 22.5 there, finding a couple of tenths actually through the middle sector. So watch out for Matt Daly. He could very much be in the fight for this pole now as he comes down the run through Brooklands and into the club corner in just a few moments' time. This is certainly anyone's game. We've got a 5-way battle for the pole here, ladies and gentlemen. It's all gone wrong right when he didn't want it to. Matt Daly locking up the back axle in the car, just about getting away from here as he heads through club. The run down the start finish straight. It is a 1:19.5 to beat, and unfortunately he's losing out through the last sector there for Matt Daly. He's going to go back on board with Colin Keefe. He's lost out through sector 1 as well. Has it been a bit of a diminuendo in this qualifying session now, as we see John Cole also losing out through the first sector this time round as well. All of a sudden it seems to be that the car's the driver's not able to improve right when it matters. We've got such a close battle going on here at the top end of qualifying, and it could be that the order pretty much stays the same. Let's see what happens now, as we've got 26 seconds for the drivers to make it towards the end of this lap attempt and get ready for one last push here in qualifying. Colin Keefe is going to make that marker, so he's going to be the first one to make that marker actually, so we'll stay on board with him as he heads into club in just a moment's time. Yeah, here he is, taking it just a little bit slow. He's got 10 seconds to make it to the line. He might want to give it a bit more welly, which is a very northern turn actually, to make sure that twin spark makes it across the line there, and he will do so with just enough margin there, only a second or two, as we see Colin Keefe now on his last push attempt. The timing system hasn't quite updated for that yet, but I'll try and follow on along with you to give you an update on that. John Cole abandoning this lap then. Andrew Whitehead able to carry on. We'll stay on board. We'll go on board with him rather. He comes towards the end of sector 2. Doesn't quite make it in sector 1. Matt Daly improving on that last lap there. He goes P3 in the end, a 1:19.6, leapfrogging Will Inglis, who just came towards the end of his lap, a 1:19.698. It's oh so close in this session here. What could have been for so many drivers, as Colin Keefe abandons this lap as well. Andrew Whitehead then, will he have enough to make the gains towards the end of this lap? It doesn't look like it, though. We'll stay on board with him as he heads into club for one final time, one of the last cars out in this qualifying session. We'll go back on board with Matt Daly and Will Inglis in just a second as well. As we see Andrew Whitehead coming across the line, will he improve? He does actually make an improvement, makes a substantial improvement, a 1:19.199. Just when all the other drivers were leaving, I believe that is now provisional pole for Andrew Whitehead with a blistering final sector there of a, yes, that is a 1:19.199. Just when I thought maybe it was a bit of diminuendo. Try it again. Diminuendo. Will anyone be able to make up gains there? And by 0.4 of a second, after such a close qualifying session, it is Andrew Whitehead who will be taking pole into race 1 here at Thruxton. I'll catch you in a few minutes for what looks to be a very interesting double header here at Thruxton indeed. I'll catch you in just a second. as we preside over a very overexposed looking Thruxton. That has just decided to do that within about the last 30 seconds. I'm not quite sure what is going on, but we get ready for race one nonetheless. Matt Daly flashing his headlights there to intimidate Colin Keneath. The car up in front there, Matt Daly P4, Colin Keneath P2. Of course, after that last minute charge by Andrew Whitehead, and with a very impressive lap there, found 0.4 of a second in qualifying and is now looking in a very good position indeed for race one here, as we now have just over 10 seconds until lights out. Let's see what these front-wheel drive, twin-spark powered 147 GTAs can do around this very high-speed Thruxton circuit. It is 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. It looks to be that Andrew Whitehead gets a very good getaway indeed. Colin Keneath losing out there slightly. I'm really going to have to fix this exposure issue in just a few seconds when I get the chance here. As John Cole looks to be fighting out with Colin Keneath there, as the cameras are not quite wanting to follow along with what we need, but there is still Andrew Whitehead defending as much as he can. John Cole goes up the inside there, takes the position away from Colin Keneath, up into P2 now for John Cole. Colin Keneath scrapping out with Matt Daly. Meanwhile, Matt Daly looking for a way around the outside. Those two make contact. Matt Daly gets pushed a little bit wide there, has had to ride over the grass. Can he claw it back in enough time? No, I don't think he can. He's going to lose out a few positions as a result of that. So a little bit too aggressive at the start, potentially, or for whatever reason he's found himself dropping back down the order now into P7, potentially even P8, depending on if he can pick up the pace once again now. But we're going to go back on board with John Cole, only about half a second off the rear wing of Andrew Whitehead's car. Andrew Whitehead obviously not making the smooth, easy getaway that he would have wanted to have. John Cole gets 2 wheels up into the air there, the car sliding across the circuit. He did a very good job to catch that, but Colin Keneath now the cork in the bottle for the midfield runners here, as he's under pressure from Willing Bliss and Alan Matthews. Now Willing Bliss going up the inside, under braking. Can he get that move to stick on the way into club? I think he can. They're riding over the curbs as well. A very nice move from Willing Bliss indeed. And there is Matt Daly fighting out with Barry Clayton, finding the way up the inside on the exit of club, actually. Up into P6 now for Matt Daly. And now he's got his sights set on Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, the car up in front here. Colin Keneath not getting the start that he would have wanted, all the way down, or I say all the way, dropping down to P4. But there is Matt Daly trying to battle it out with him anyway now, as he's alongside Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews riding over those curbs, trying to keep Matt Daly behind. Meanwhile, Barry Clayton's hoping to get involved in this as well. Meanwhile, if we look at the Amron, it is Rosie who leads Jack in this championship fight and in this race as well. As we go back on board with Matt Daly here, under pressure from Barry Clayton, but only a 10th off the car of Alan Matthews. There's contact between Matt and Alan there. Alan, the back end, just about getting away from him. He did a good job to catch it, and there is Barry Clayton off as well. What a disaster for him in this race. A very high speed off there. I'm not quite sure what happened. For whatever reason, the back end stepping out on him, or potentially a little bit of contact that we didn't quite catch. But a high speed off there. Luckily, pretty much no obstacles to hit here at this circuit, so he is able to rejoin, but is rejoining about 9 seconds down the road. That's not what he would have wanted. Meanwhile, Matt Daly and Alan Matthews battling it out there, scrapping it out as they head into the club corner. And all this battling has slowed them down a little bit. They're not too far away from the likes of Andrew Brammer, Rosie Hodson and Jack Hodson. Rosie Hodson still leading those two. That is a battle that we want to focus on for sure. Of course, this race can make all the difference in the championship fight for the AM running now, as we see John Cole now about a second behind Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead has really kind of dialed up the heat at the end of this qualifying session. Seems to have really found himself quite comfortable with the car and the track. I'm not sure if he hadn't had much practice before this, but for whatever reason he seems to be really quite confident in the car and the circuit combination now, and is really reaping the rewards for it. And now about a second clear of John Cole. John Cole keeping him honest though in the first 5 minutes of this race. We're going to go on board with Willing Bliss. Willing Bliss under pressure from Colin Keneath as we head down towards, where are we heading down towards now? We're heading down towards the church corner, and then we have Brooklands and then Club. No, of course, we are just yes, we are now at the church. I lost myself for a second there, as Colin Keneath potentially looking for a way around the outside there, ends up riding over the grass. Car gets a little bit upset, but he is able to continue on now. So you see Matt Daly finding an overtake there up into P5 as well. Seems to have broken up that gap, or made that gap a little bit bigger on this occasion, as we see all the cars riding over the curbs there, just in the background, out of focus there, through Club. That is a spectacle and a half, that is, as we see the cars up on 2 wheels. but the leaders in this race at the moment, they're currently in the 119s. There we have a 127 on record for John Cole on that previous lap, but I don't believe that is the best lap. That'll just be due to invalidations, I am sure. But Colin Keefe is really whittling down at that best lap time in his charge against Willing Bliss into the 120s at the moment. But Purple Sector 1 and Sector 2 and is now about 3 seconds clear of Matt Daly and only 4 tenths behind Winning Bliss at this stage in the race. Still plenty of racing action to go though. John Cole within that 1 second margin, that very important 1 second margin, which is something that Jack Hodgson does not. Jack Hodgson does not have the privilege of. He is unfortunately not quite keeping up with Rosie at this stage in the race. Everyone on the soft compound tyre, of course, in this car, in this running of the touring cars. As we see Andrew Brammer currently enjoying quite a nice little race under pressure from Rosie Hodgson potentially, although of course they are in 2 different categories, about a second apart and about a second behind Alan Matthews there. As we see Barry Clayton, it will be, I imagine, his next rival as Barry Clayton makes his way back through the order, trying to catch up with Andrew, and they'll enjoy a bit of a battle as we watch these cars heading through the club corner now. Let's see, is everyone being a little bit more careful with the curbs on this lap? It looks to be that is the case, which is good to see. The bodywork and suspension, I'm sure, breathing a sigh of relief at this stage, but not for long, I am sure. As we're going to go back on board with Andrew Whitehead, then the current race leader, about a second clear based on what corner they are at of John Cole rather. But I'd say it looks to be that potentially we're seeing Willing Bliss and Colin Keefe starting to catch up to the front runners there. They are posting identical lap times, only 4 400ths of a second in it between the likes of John Cole and Willing Bliss. Of course, I say identical. When you found that out in qualifying, that 400th of a second can make all the difference in this race. It is. They are huge margins here at Thruxton in the 147 GTA, which is something that we like to see. It means we are enjoying some very close racing indeed. As we're going to go on board with Alan Matthews now about 7 tenths of a second in front of Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer really has got a bit of pace underneath him in this race, both in the high 120s, or apologies, Alan in the low 120s at the moment. Let's see what he can do against Alan Matthews now as we're heading down towards the final part of the lap once again. What an excellent camera shot here, as it's unfortunately just gotten away from us there. There is my 75 in the background with its hazard lights on. It must be the world's most unreliable 75 that it's spent its entire working life with the hazard lights on. But also very low mileage. If anyone would like to make it in the office, just let me know. As we see Andrew Whitehead's next car that we're going to have a look at now, still currently leading this race, looks to be relatively comfortable at the moment, lapping an identical, I'm going to say identical this time, it's 0.008 of a second, but in race trim. That is some very impressive racecraft going on from either Andrew or John, or both. That John is certainly keeping Andrew honest at this stage. Of course, the leader is usually the one who sets the pace, and John Cole is responding to that very nicely indeed. That is John Cole's best lap of the race so far. Andrew's best lap of this race so far is a 1:19.4. Is that someone going off? I believe that is Colin Keefe. Yes, it is. Just going a little bit wide there. Whereabouts is this on the circuit there? That is on the run through, on the exit of Goodwood, heading down towards Church. So that is a bit of a disaster for Colin Keefe, because Matt Daly, who had an utter nightmare at the start of this race, now all of a sudden found himself in P4 ahead of Colin Keefe. Colin Keefe, it doesn't seem to be his weekend so far, it must be said. Of course, that is very easy to say when someone who is usually at the absolute top of the game absolutely dominates the qualifying sessions and seems to be having a relatively easy time of it. Doesn't seem to be having that in this weekend. Still got some good pace underneath him, but looks to be struggling a little bit more than he usually would. Someone who isn't is John Cole. John Cole just set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:19.436. That is only 600ths of a second faster than the previous fast lap of the race set by Andrew, the car up in front, and that has meant that they are just a little bit closer on this lap, around about 7 or 8 tenths between the two this time round. So let's see what John Cole can do. Can he keep this pace up? If we head through Sector 1, John Cole has indeed been able to close that gap just a little bit more now, as we're going to go on board actually with Colin Keefe. I imagine seeing Matt Daly, his championship rival, overtaking him now will spur him on just a little bit. Now he has a target, now he has a car to follow, to try and get the upper hand on, but he's ridden over the curbs unfortunately for him, goes wide, goes back onto the grass again, and this doesn't seem to be Colin Keefe's weekend, or doesn't seem to be his race unfortunately for him. Just a couple of errors there, or the curbs spitting the cars off. Of course, you never know just how difficult these tracks are to drive unless you've driven them yourself, and unfortunately I must say I haven't driven Thruxton on Assetto course, so I don't know if it's a bit of a clipping disaster, shall we say, as is often the case with a couple of circuits. All you have to do is look back at Alton Park for what has got to be one of my highlights of the season, watching two 1750 GTAs in, let's say, unforeseen circumstances, as Matt Daly dipping into the 119s there. Alan Matthews, a 119.4 there. That is up there with the leaders of the race. That is up there with the best. That is a very nice lap indeed. So everyone pretty much setting qualifying laps at this stage in the race. Everyone hovering around the 130 mile an hour mark, apart from Jack Hodgson, 127 miles an hour. I was about to say maybe that is something that he can lean on when he says, you know, there's a reason why I couldn't quite keep up with my rival, not only my rival, but my sibling and my rival. So hopefully no family disputes come out of this weekend. But I was going to say that, but Jack Hodgson's doing a very nice job of keeping up, even if he is carrying a little bit more downforce here. He's about a second behind his rival, has caught up just that little bit, and I imagine it's going to be putting the pressure on later on in the race. We've seen that a couple of times actually in both the single-seater and the touring car championship. Jack Hodgson seems to have quite the charge towards the end of the races, seems to really capitalise on when other cars haven't maybe got the pace underneath him, and plays his racecraft just right there and is able to fight back. Someone who has fought back is Matt Daly. Matt Daly has made the overtake into P3 now. Willing Bliss now down into P4, which is surprising in the pace that he has demonstrated on a couple of occasions so far this weekend, as Matt Daly's car riding through the curve, through the club corner, rides under the curbs there and gets very upset indeed. He is luckily able to catch it. There's nothing more satisfying actually than a front wheel drive catch, it must be said. When the back end steps down, you really whack full steering lock on, full mash of throttle, and you get the car back in line. I must say it's happened a couple of times in my Mito QV, it must be said, as we now head down towards Campbell and Cobb. And it is still Matt Daly who leads, but this pack has all of a sudden got very close. Only 0.6 of a second separating separating Matt Daly and Willing Bliss, and only about 0.4 of a second separating Alan Matthews and Willing Bliss. Alan Matthews, of course, pretty much setting leading pace. He's the second fastest car on track in terms of best lap time at the moment. He is very much looking forward to getting involved in this fight, I am sure, now as we are about to enter the halfway stage in this race now. Matt Daly still leading this pack down. They're about to come across their first a little bit of lapsed traffic. The car's looking very eager to turn in, though, or rather not looking that eager to turn in, but looking like they are being told to, as they've seen them leaning through those high-speed bends there. Only about 0.4 of a second separating Willing Bliss and Alan Matthews, so maybe this is where most of the battle lies, because what Matt Daly wants to do is try to get past Steve Knight as quickly as possible and build a bit of a buffer, use him as a bit of a gap between him and the cars, trying to get the overtake done on him. As we see, actually, Steve Knight just about gets out of the way in time there, braking as he does so. That has slowed down Matt Daly by the looks of things and allowed Willing Bliss to catch up, bringing along with him Alan Matthews. Are we potentially about to see it 3 wide into a couple of corners here? Willing Bliss was thinking about it up the inside, wasn't going to make it work from that far back though, as Colin Knieve now has that lap traffic to navigate past rather, and is up into, well, is currently in P6. Starting from P2, this has not been a race to an earner for him, that is for sure. But Alan Matthews really putting that pressure on now only 1/10 of a second separating these two cars, as we have the run down towards the village straight coming up in a second. It's not so much of a straight there. In fact, there are no perfect straights on this circuit, which just makes it that little bit more technical, as we have Alan Matthews up the inside there as we head into Church. He's going to take the inside line and is going to get that overtake done. Very nice move there, very good bravery on display, that is for sure, as we see now them running down through Brooklands rather, and towards Club. It is going to be Willing Bliss who has the advantage of that, just that little bit of slipstream. Shouldn't make too much of a difference given the downforce levels on these cars, but every little helps. And up the inside, under braking into the Club, locking up the wheels as he does so as well. Willing Bliss gets that position back. He really meant business when he did that. Has he slowed himself down now on the exit of Club? I think he has. They are side by side as we head into Allard now. Alan Matthews going to take the position back up the inside, riding over the curb, carrying as much speed as possible back into P4 for Alan Matthews. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, it is Andrew Brammer getting the overtake done on Steve Knight, I believe that is actually, as the fight rages on between Alan Matthews and Willing Bliss. We're going to stay on board with Colin Knieve to try and watch this. Actually, is going to provide us a perfect viewing point, as we see that wing on the back of the 147 GTA rear here working as hard as it can. Are these a twin spark car? Are they? I don't believe they're a 3.2. I could be wrong here. I really should remember that. We haven't seen the 147 too many times in this season's running. If I've been saying it's a twin spark all along, then it's a 3.2. I do apologise, but that is not what matters right now. What matters is the battle between Alan Matthews and Winning Bliss, as we are currently fighting for P4. Is Alan Matthews now? We have the run down through the church right-hander. I can't actually see which cars are which on the driver tracker here, because they're all so close together. They're now side by side as we head through Brooklands and head into the braking zone of the club corner. It's going to be Alan Matthews just has the inside, but is he going to be too late on the brakes? No, it's going to be Winning Bliss who goes too deep on the brakes. There, locks up, spins round, and it's going to lose a huge amount of time from there. He's going to have to wait until he can rejoin. Currently now in P7 is going to have Steam Knight for company once again, and that is a disaster for Winning Bliss given the pace that he was carrying in this race. That is not what he wanted at this stage. We've got just under 10 minutes to go, and it is Alan Matthews who's going to come out on top in that battle. But would he come out on top in this battle? Colin Keefe goes up the inside, takes P4 as we head through Campbell and Carp. That is a fantastic move from Colin Keefe there, a real champion's drive on display once again as he now charges back towards Matt Daly in this race. He wants this podium, and this podium could very much be on the cards for him, as it is currently between Matt Daly, John Cole and Andrew Whitehead, who we haven't focused on too much over the past few minutes because all the battling has been going on in the midfield at the moment, which is good to see. Andrew Whitehead still leading John Cole. John Cole doing a very good job of putting that pressure on from about a second back. That is a really awkward gap for Andrew Whitehead, actually, because he can't rest on his laurels. He can't breathe easy. He can't relax just a little bit to try and make sure he doesn't make any errors. He's still constantly got to concentrate. He's still got to make sure he keeps the pace up and doesn't make any mistakes. He just about made one there, going a little bit too wide on the exit of club, riding over those curbs. It upset the car, but John Cole pretty much made the same error by looks of things, so he is able to carry on with about a second gap between the two cars. There's not a second gap between the cars of Colin Keefe and Alan Matthews as they head down the start-finish straight once again. It is Colin Keefe who still leads the two as they head into Allard, and there's still 0.2 of a second separating them, but can Alan Matthews close that up just that little bit more under braking? He's looking up the inside there, but he's too far back. A lock up for Colin Keefe might help him, but Colin Keefe able to defend it, able to block it off, make sure that move doesn't happen. But John Cole looking a little bit closer this time round, now only about 0.6 of a second. We haven't seen these two cars that close for a little while in this race, it must be said. But let's see what he can do now as he heads through down towards the church corner. The right-hander coming up in just a moment. It is quite hard to find out where you are on this circuit sometimes. It all looks a little bit samey, all very high speed, all very wide open, promoting some great racing, as we now have about 0.3 of a second separating Alan Matthews and Colin Keefe as they head through the second sector now, or rather head into the third sector at this point, running down towards club. Let's see what Alan Matthews can do. They are now side by side as we come towards the end of Brooklands. Only have the club corners to negotiate now. Locking up the back axle, Alan Matthews concedes that position that time round. Unfortunately, losing out in the braking zone there, as Matt Daly actually posting his best lap of the race so far, a 1:19.5, which is a very nice lap indeed. Well, just look at how close those two cars are as they head through Allard. Really putting the pressure on is Alan Matthews as he looks to go around the long way around the left-hander before we enter Campbell. Under braking there, the inside for the right-hander, he's going to have to concede once again. Colin Keefe really nailing the defensive drive in this race, it must be said. Still putting that pressure on is Alan Matthews, now about 0.3 of a second separating the two cars. We had a change for position between Barry Clayton and Jack Cotton. Looks to be that Barry Clayton, though, just misjudging the braking ever so slightly, carrying a little bit too much speed, and is still under pressure from Jack Cotton. Jack Cotton will be wanting, as politely as possible but as quickly as possible, for Barry Clayton to get out of the way, effectively, is what I'm sure he's saying in the cabin, because the battle for the AMP Championship still rages on. The battle between Colin Keefe and Alan Matthews might still be raging on now, as Alan Matthews once again takes the position, but can he make it stick now, as we gap at about 0.5 of a second as we enter club? And it looks to be that Alan Matthews is looking a little bit more secure than he has done on the past few occasions, but let's see what Colin Keefe can do in terms of fighting back. Colin Keith actually setting a purple sector through Sector 2 that time round, as he really is pushing to try and make the difference back towards Alan Matthews there. As the back end looking very eager to rotate on Alan Matthews' car. Right then, perhaps he has absolutely nailed that setup, of course. Maybe some drivers not preferring the back end to be a little bit eager to spin around. It is my personal preference to have the back end of the car kind of trying to guide you through the corner if it's front wheel drive. If it's a rear wheel drive, I tend to actually also prefer oversteer as well. I'm a bit of a tyre eater, it must be said. Probably one of my TR1s on the Mito only lasted 8,000 miles last year, as we now see the gap between John Cole and Andrew Whitehead got to about 0.4 of a second very briefly through Church there, but it opens up once again. Andrew Whitehead really delivering in this race, something we haven't unfortunately been able to see Andrew Whitehead in every round this year, as the cars bouncing over the curbs through the club corner there. The suspension really getting to work out. You're going to have to check those eyes for cracks once you get back into the pits ready for race 2. You don't want to be losing any pressure, but yes, it is a shame that we haven't had Andrew Whitehead at every round this year, because he has certainly delivered in all the ones that he's participated in. Now, as we're going to go on board, I believe, with Barry Clayton once again, as we watch his charge through the field, as we watch actually a bit of a mess, or well, not a mess, rather, but a bit of a cluster of lapsed traffic to contend with. As there is Steve Knight there. We're going to have to see who big amount of contact there between Rosie Hodgson and Barry Clayton. That is not what Rosie needed at this stage in the race there. The fight for the championship raging on at this point. It is still Rosie Hodgson who leads on the points tally before the end of this race, but that is exactly what Jack Hodgson needed. Rosie Hodgson now back into P9, but how many seconds is she behind Jack Hodgson? I believe it is about 10 seconds. No, it's about 6 seconds actually. Still not what she needed. She had pretty much dominated the AM race so far. There are only 3 AM competitors present this evening, but has had the measure on Jack all throughout this race. And right when she didn't need it, only 3 minutes to go in this race, has unfortunately found a barrier and has found herself about 7 seconds behind her championship rival. What a shame to see. We're going to go back on board with Alan Matthews and Colin Keith as they head through club side by side now, riding over the curbs, both of them. Alan Matthews somehow keeping hold of it, even though the car looking like it was jumping into the air, goes wide on exit, is surely going to lose time as a result of that. Colin Keith carrying a little bit more speed, but is going to be able to defend is Alan Matthews as we head into turn 1. We head into Allard now, and it is still Alan Matthews leading these two, but not for long by the looks of things. Colin Keith up the inside. He's going to have to go the long way around for Campbell and Cobb now, but has the inside actually for Cobb. This could pay dividends, will it? No. From what looks to be quite far back, Alan Matthews able to charge back. There's contact between the two, and Colin Keith's car very nearly went flying off the circuit. He did a very good job to catch it, and has somehow in all this been able to get the move done, I believe. And no, still side by side between the two as we head down through Noble and Goodwood in just a moment's time here. Alan Matthews taking the inside, although it doesn't make too much of a difference at such a high-speed circuit. Still in P4 as we started this lap. This battle could go on for quite a while, I can imagine, as Colin Keith is going to take the position back once again. Is going to go and just stick a nose out here, as it looks to be that Alan Matthews has gone far too wide there. Where has he gone? I believe has he made contact with the wall somewhere? That'd be very impressive if he has, given there's no walls. No, he hasn't. He skips back onto the tarmac, skips back off the tarmac, skips back onto the tarmac again, but is unfortunately about 2.5 seconds down this time round. Very good that he was able to catch that, though. I'm sure he'll be very frustrated with himself indeed at this stage, because he has done such a good job of challenging Colin Keith. He's certainly put a hamper on Colin Keith's progress, as he's now only got 2 minutes to try and make up 8 seconds if he wants a spot on the podium. Not sure he's going to be able to do that, but someone who will be fairly happy that they're going to be able to get a spot on the podium, as I'm moving about the UI once again, is Andrew Whitehead. Has pretty much kept John Cole at a 1 second distance, pretty much grasping distance there for John Cole. So tantalisingly close for him, but it was too little too late by the looks of things. Not going to be able to get that move done at this stage in the race with 2 minutes to go, unless, well, I say that, there's only 0.8 of a second between them. We've seen mistakes be the harbinger of death of some battles. It could be the case for this one as well, as it is Andrew Whitehead who still leads at about 0.8 between him and John Cole. I really do like the livery on Andrew Whitehead's car there, very reminiscent of the current F1 car, with, of course, the heritage, or the shall we say the commemorative livery from Monza last year as well. Bouncing over the curbs then, both of those cars through club. Looks to be that John Cole's lost out a little bit of the time actually that time round. and he has indeed. He's lost about a second through that one small error through club. That's not what he needed at this stage if we wanted to try and put the pressure on even more. The pressure, if anything, has just eased off for Andrew Whitehead. It will be an impressive victory if he can bring it home in first place. And right now, as we enter the final stages in this race, it looks to be that all the battling has finally just about to come to an end. All the cars settling into their groove right as we come towards the end of the race, feeling a little bit more comfortable on track with a bit of space that they can occupy without too much challenge at all. What could have been the battle between Jack Hodson and Rosie Hodson there. Jack Hodson will be pleased, I am sure, the sibling rivalry going his way at this stage with that one small incident spelling the end for Rosie Hodson, but still did a very good job. Will be coming home P2 in the AM running as well. And see who else will we have a look at. Well, Andrew Bram has had a fairly quiet race. I haven't looked at him too much, but has been plodding along in P6, P7, there or thereabouts for some time now. He's going to be under pressure, I think, towards the later stages from Will Inglis, but Will Inglis, after carrying such impressive pace, battling out with Colin Keneath, has had a bit of an unfortunate race, much like Barry Clayton there. Much like what could have been for Colin Keneath, actually, had he not had that instance early on in the race, as we are now on the final lap. So I believe we're going to stay on board with Andrew Whitehead as we enjoy what will be a bit of a victory parade lap for him after such an impressive drive in this race. Now as we head down towards Campbell, the first real braking zone on the lap. Now we have the run through Cobb, and then after Cobb we have Seagrave and then Noble as well. I'm just giving you a small tour at this stage there, as is Andrew Whitehead. A very quick tour, it must be said. His best lap in the end being a 1:19.4, still lapping in the low 120s actually, so the pace didn't really drop off. That fuel load getting lighter will help. That's probably why we saw the back end stepping away from some of the drivers in the later stages. Actually, it looks to be that Andrew Bram and Will are going to be getting a little bit closer, but I don't think we have to look at that just yet now. So we're going to stay on board with Andrew Whitehead. What has happened here? Have we had a bit of an incident? No, we haven't. We've had a bit of a timing glitch there. We're going to stay on board with Andrew Whitehead as we now have the run on the exit of the church through Brooklands and down towards the club for one final time for the leaders in this race. It has been an impressive drive from Andrew Whitehead, led from lap 1, got an immense getaway, of course dominated qualifying in the end as well, really turned up the work here, and is going to come across the line with a very deserving P1 for Andrew Whitehead. Has led every single lap of this race, and commiserations to John Cole for a very impressive drive that unfortunately didn't result in a win for you, but it was oh so close. Did a very good job of keeping Andrew Whitehead honest. Matt Daly will be coming home P3 as well. It is an impressive podium for all three drivers there. Colin Keneath on a recovery drive there comes home P4 as well. He'll be happy taking away some decent points there, as will Alan Matthews after such a long battle will be disappointed, I'm sure, that it ended in the way that it did. Andrew Brammer coming home P6, winning list, a case of what could have been for him, coming home P7, and there is Jack Hodson. I'm going to stay on board with Jack Hodson as he takes the victory in race 1. I'm not sure if he takes the victory in the AM running, so I'll do a bit of an update on that in race 2 if that is the case, but certainly has the upper hand as he comes across the line in a moment's time to take the race 1 victory in the AM running. Congratulations, Jack, and commiserations, Rosie. The sibling rivalry not going her way, of course, to circumstances that didn't look to be entirely in her control. Steve Knight will be coming home P10, and Barry Clayton will be classified P11. So a very impressive first half of the weekend's racing action there. We look forward to race 2, the reverse grid race, coming up in a few moments' time as we round out the touring car running for this year. In fact, we round out all of the H1 running for this year. Can you believe it's come around so fast? I certainly can't. But I'll catch you in a few moments' time I'll try that again. I'll catch you in a few moments' time for the reverse grid race here at Thruxton. And we're just or just over 30 seconds ago until lights out. We are ready for the reverse grid race. It is Will Inglis on pole, Andrew Brammer P2, Alan Matthews P3, Colin Keneath P4, Matt Daly P5. That'll be one to watch out for. John Cole P6, Andrew Whitehead P7, Steve Knight P8, Rosie Hodson P9, Jack Hodson P10, and Barry Clayton P11. So certainly all to play for in this reverse grid race. The order has been mixed up, and we are ready for this now. The final time in the touring car running for this year, the GTA Championship coming to a close, and half one of this year's running comes to a close for the Alfa Racing Leagues. It is 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away there as we have a huge amount of smoke from the cars of well, there's Barry Clayton for some reason. A huge amount of smoke from the cars of Will Inglis and Andrew Brammer there, but all getting a fairly good getaway, must have said. Colin Keneath certainly getting a better getaway than he did in race 1 now, as Will Inglis, or Alan Matthews rather, looking for a way up the inside there by the looks of things. It's all getting very it's too close for comfort, in fact, as we head into Campbell there. A few cars bouncing over the curbs as we start off a fairly eclectic start to this race. It must be said, no major impacts, just in fact there's a major impact between. Who is that between? That is John Cole and is that Andrew Whitehead as well? I believe it was, but John Cole then has found his way to the bottom of the order, unfortunately for him. Still spinning around is Jack Hodson as well, so he had the fortune of race 1 but the misfortune at the start of race 2 there, as you see Barry Clayton currently leading the running. And there is Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews losing positions there, now down into P5 as Matt Daly and Colin Keneath steam their way past. In fact, it seems to be a little bit slow, does Alan Matthews. I'm not sure what is going on, but he's under pressure now from Andrew Brammer as he seems to be dropping back down the order. Meanwhile, they're nearly 3 wide heading into club there. Andrew Brammer backing out of it just a little bit. He thought better of it. No need to make a major mistake. Although it is a sprint race, it is still a race of attrition. You have to finish first. You have to finish, of course. And he doesn't want to make an instance earlier on in this race, as we have Will Inglis getting the overtake done, heading in to turn 1 up the inside, takes P1 away from Barry Clayton. Let's see what Barry can do in terms of fighting back. We didn't focus on Barry too much in the previous race, of course, given how it started for him, so let's see what he can do in terms of pace compared to his rivals of Matt Daly and Will Inglis. As Colin Keneath currently in P4, he's had a bit of a better start to this race than he did the previous one, but we're going to focus on the top 3 who are only separated by 0.2 of a second. Barry Clayton and Matt Daly side by side briefly there, still side by side. In fact, it is Matt Daly who's going to go up the inside and take the position from Barry Clayton up into P2 now for Matt Daly. I really invented a driver there. But now we have Matt Daly with his sights set on Will Inglis as we head to B. In fact, that is going to be a major error for Will Inglis. They're both cars, in fact, riding over the curb and riding over the grass, the curb, but just spitting the car off the circuit. They're now 3 wide. 3 wide now as we have the run down towards the club. Barry Clayton comes out in top in all of this, has the highest top speed by the looks of things, but all 3 kicking a bit of smoke as they lock wheels heading into club corner. It is Matt Daly now up the inside, under braking. I don't believe it was up the inside actually, but under braking takes the position back and into P1 for Matt Daly now. And in fact, if he wins out in that race, in fact, he takes a bit of an advantage on that previous lap, it must be said, as we have. It is now Barry Clayton and who is that there? That is Barry Clayton and Will Inglis now fighting out for P2. Colin Keneath is involved in all this as well, as is Matt Daly, as is Alan Matthews rather, pretty much as we head through the Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave complex. It is going to be Will Inglis who leads these 4 effectively. Alan Matthews dropping off the back just a little bit now. In fact, is he? No, I wouldn't say he is really. He's looking very close on track just in terms of the timing screen. It's a little bit further behind because there is Colin Keneath now side by side with Barry Clayton. Gets the move done, takes the position back from Barry Clayton. But for how long can Barry Clayton fight back? I think he can, although Colin Keneath has his sights set on Will Inglis. Will Inglis currently running in P2. All 3 drivers benefiting from a bit of a slip through there. And there is Matt Daly bouncing over a curb, has 2 wheels up in the air. That surely won't help his cause as he managed to rejoin the track, much like Alan Matthews, or much the opposite really of Alan Matthews in race 1. There is Barry Clayton up into P3 now. They are pretty much 3 wide heading into club here. It is some very close racing action indeed. And Barry Clayton's going to have to go the long way around. I don't think he had anywhere to go. Maybe outbrake himself a little bit and is now still in P2. I don't think he gained too much of an advantage from that at all, really. But as we have Will Inglis in P3, Colin Keneath in P4 and Alan Matthews in P5. The top 5 of this race all looking very eager to battle indeed, which is good to see. As we have Still Barry Clayton leading the top two, or top five, or rather, I'll try that again. Leading this pack once again as we head through Campbell. And there is Willingliss. A small error from Willingliss there has Colin Keefe right back in the action here, side by side with Willingliss. Now, Alan Matthews is not too far off this at all. In fact, all this battling is somewhat slowing them down. There is Andrew Brammer and Andrew Whitehead as well, could be getting involved in this, as Alan Matthews finds a way past Colin Keefe, but for how long? They are still 3 wide. Looks to be there's contact between Alan Matthews and Willingliss. Willingliss did a very good job of keeping hold of it. The back end getting away from him. Still rides over the grass, so in fact he's losing it by the looks of things. Can he rejoin in time for Andrew Brammer and Andrew Whitehead to still be behind? I don't think he can. They're going to have so much more pace behind them now. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews still focusing on Colin Keefe there, side by side as they were in race 1, running down towards Club now. Still side by side in top gear now, hitting speeds of 130 miles an hour as we enter Club. Alan Matthews under braking, gets the move done, or does he? Yes, he's able to box him off as we ride over the curbs now. Some drivers being a little bit more aggressive than others. Matt Daly setting a 1:19 flat. That's got to be the fastest lap we have seen all weekend, I believe. Let's see how much that time improves as we get later into this race. So we should be seeing the 1:18s, which will be a bit of a sight to behold. But what else is going on in this race? Although this top 5 battle is enthralling, that is for sure. As a lock-up for Alan Matthews there. The back end seems to be very eager to lock up on these cars. Of course, all the weight already sitting the front end of the car. That transfers a little bit under braking as well. The battle between Willingliss and Rosie Hodgson seems to have ended. Oh no, it doesn't. In fact, it seems to be very much continuing on, as Rosie Hodgson wants to try and extend her lead on her championship rival Jack Hodgson there, as we have John Cole involved in this mix as well. Of course, John Cole, a bit of a premature end to his race very early on, down in P9, a bit out of position for his pace. Of course, he did such a good job of keeping Andrew Whitehead honest in race 1, and that is a bit of a disaster for Rosie Hodgson. She needs to try and join the track as quickly as possible, because there, only about 10 seconds behind, is her championship rival Jack Hodgson. As we now have Rosie back on track with a little bit of a pace deficit, but it seems to be that the gap between her and her rival was just big enough. As we see, meanwhile, heading through the Club corner is Barry Clayton, who leads this battling pack, then heading through the start-finish straight. Currently in P2 is Barry Clayton. Alan Matthews trying to find a way round the outside, looking for a bit of clean tarmac that he can use to get his 147 GTA. It is a very wide, very high-speed circuit, so it should be possible here, a track that promotes to overtaking by the looks of things. And there is Colin Keefe still involved in all of this battling. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead has broken away from Andrew Brammer just a little bit, and now I imagine is setting his sights on trying to get involved in this bit of battling action now, as we have the run down towards Noble and Goodwood. And the gaps are oh so close, only a tenth of a second separating Barry Clayton and Alan Matthews, and only a few tenths separating Colin Keefe from those two as well. In fact, that's going to get even shorter as we now enter the midway stage of this race. Barry Clayton then side by side with Alan Matthews. Can Alan Matthews get a move done up the inside? Yes, he can, and Colin Keefe can as well. That is a fantastic move from both of those drivers. Barry Clayton pretty much caught sleeping there. There was just about a car's width, and both cars behind capitalised on that. And Colin Keefe is actually going to potentially get the move done on Alan Matthews as well, braking into the Club corner, boxes Alan Matthews off. Colin Keefe finds his way up into P2. All of a sudden, car gets a little bit upset over the curb. Still carrying enough pace though. Alan Matthews loses out on the exit of Club. There is Barry Clayton back involved in it all of a sudden. Can still take a position on the podium. I believe he has done so through turn 1, or has he? I believe Alan Matthews still just about clinging on around the outside there. It is all to play for in this race. As I've said throughout this weekend, it is just so close. And there is Andrew Whitehead as well, certainly not wanting to miss out at all. This is, of course, the battle for the lead of this race. And now Matt Daly seems to have slowed down just a little bit by the looks of things. I'm not sure what has gone on. No, he hasn't. It's just a bit of a transponder issue there. But Colin Keefe currently in P2. It is Barry Clayton and Matt Daly's cars. Very similar indeed. And Collins from the rear as well. I do apologise. But Colin Keefe currently running in P2. Alan Matthews P3. Barry Clayton P4 and Andrew Whitehead P5. But I'm sure that order is going to change at one point or another. We've got just over 50 minutes to go in this race. And there is Colin Keefe leading this pack. Did a fantastic job of scything his way between his rivals. Barry Clayton, who once led this trio, now finds himself down in P4. But I'm sure he can fight for it as we look let's compare their current pace at the moment. It is 120.6 for Colin Keneath on the previous lap. Alan Matthews at 121.6 and Barry Clayton at 121.9, but their best laps 119.6 for Colin Keneath, 119.9 for Alan Matthews and 120.5 for Barry Clayton. And so it seems to be that Colin Keneath has the upper hand at the moment, but Barry Clayton is fighting back against Alan Matthews now as they are side by side. It looks to be that he is finding a way up the inside potentially as we enter Campbell and Cobb there. A lock up for Alan Matthews coming towards Noble in just a second, bouncing over the curb, a wheel up in the air, but it is still Alan Matthews in P3 for the moment. But for how long? What a fantastic view we've got here, revving to about 8,500 RPM before the upshift into gear 5 for Barry Clayton. Tries to find a way past Alan Matthews. Is just about a car's width there if he can stick a nose up, but of course he doesn't want to do that in case the door gets shut and they both go flying off. That will give Andrew Whitehead a chance at the podium there, as we see them running down towards Church now. Colin Keneath breaking away from this pack just a little bit. Barry Clayton still trying to find a way past. There's only a tenth separating the two, but where can Alan Matthews defend, because it looks to be fairly open here, the run down towards Club. Surely Barry Clayton is going to have a go here. I believe he is, going up the inside down the straight, the not so straight breaking into Club, but Alan Matthews just a little bit later on the brakes, and there's contact between the two. That is a disaster for Barry Clayton, much like it was in race 1. He finds himself in a tyre barrier, this time at Club, and is dropping far down the order indeed. Now down P8 already. The field was still so close that he's lost out a huge amount of positions as a result of that. And there is Alan Matthews in P3, under pressure from Andrew Whitehead all of a sudden as we head through turn 1. Andrew Whitehead fancies his chances for a spot on the podium after winning race 1. He could still take away some very impressive points from this weekend. Colin Keneath seems to be in a bit of a different race at this point in time, seems to have broken away, but Andrew Whitehead can still find a spot on the bottom spot of the podium here if he plays his cards right. About a half of a second separating these two cars. That sounds very American. About half a second separating these two cars now. What can Andrew Whitehead do to try and find a way past? Commiserations to Barry Clayton for that one there. Meanwhile, Rosie Hodson in the AM running, still leading her sibling Jack Hodson by about 7 seconds at this point in time. In fact, the midfield pack looking very close indeed. Only 0.3 of a second separating Will Inglis and John Cole there. In fact, only 0.1 of a second separating them apparently. And there they are, following each other's every move as we have the run through Brooklands down towards Club in just a moment's time. Will Inglis looking for a long way around there. The door is open, the gaps are wide enough. You can't really close the door on this circuit. It's so wide without the tight corners. Here, as we see, Will Inglis under braking up the inside, gets the move done into P6 for Will Inglis. There looked relatively easy, it must be said, as we now have Andrew Whitehead still battling for P3. Can he make up the difference between him and Alan Matthews? I'm not sure at this stage if he can. What will help though is Alan Matthews has another lockup like that. That will draw Andrew Whitehead just that little bit closer, right over the curb. Does Andrew Whitehead his car, not thanking him for that, I am sure, as we're now at the halfway stage of this race already. And it is still raging on in the midfield there. The battling still continues on. Gap between Alan Matthews and Colin Keneath currently standing at about 2 seconds here, so he's closing that gap up by the looks of things. Yeah, compare their current lap pace, 119.8 for Alan Matthews and a 120.3 for Colin Keneath on that previous lap. So he's being spurred on by Andrew Whitehead, the car behind, who's just gone a little bit quicker than Alan Matthews that time round, and that is bringing him back into the fight for P2 potentially. So we could, towards the end of this race, have a bit of a close battle going on for the top spot on the podium. Who knows? Matt Daly seems to be looking fairly comfortable in the lead of this race at the moment, but not all is decided yet, that is for sure, as John Cole and Will Inglis still battling out as they head through the Campbell and Cobb complex. In all this, Andrew Brammer has been brought into a bit of a battle as well. Currently leading these three is Andrew Brammer, sat in P5. A very nice race for him at the moment. It could turn just a little bit more south. It would be very helpful if it didn't drop the microphone there, but as it's looking just a little bit more sour for Andrew Brammer, potentially if John Cole and Willie List can find a way past, as we're going to go back aboard with Alan Matthews, as he's looking a little bit further away than Andrew Whitehead, this time around, but by a little bit further away. I still mean only about half a second separating the two. As we look back once again at John Cole and Willie List, the gap at only 0.3 of a second, as we have the run into the club corner here, where Willingless going very aggressive over the curves there in order to try and make up even the littlest thousandth or hundredth of a second there. For both cars, in fact, I'd say John Cole more than anyone are getting a much better getaway out of club in comparison to Andrew Brammer. Maybe John Cole is hoping to try and use Andrew Brammer as a bit of a stopgap between him and Will Inglis, try and build a bit of a buffer, use him as a bit of a buffer zone, just to make that overtake a little bit more difficult for Will Inglis if he so chooses to. So it looks to be that John Cole actually not quite having the measure on Andrew Brammer through this corner complex here, as he actually does on the exit. It's all chopping and changing, ladies and gentlemen, as we see them now side by side. Better exit for John Cole means he is promoted up into P5, and that's exactly what he wanted in terms of his battle with Will Inglis, because Andrew Brammer currently in P6, separating the two now. Will Inglis is now not only going to have to work to try and overtake John Cole, before he can even think about that, he's going to try and work to overtake Andrew Brammer as well, and that is certainly not going to help things. A little off there over the grass. He wants to try and get back onto the tarmac as quickly as possible. There's no grip out there, so he wants to try and unload the front end, back off the throttle there, and just try and gently bring the car back towards the tarmac, as we have just under 10 minutes to go in this race. But Andrew Brammer is fighting back. That's not what John Cole expected, as we have the run down towards club. Side by side now, these two. Andrew Brammer is going to have the inside line for the first entry into club, and is he going to be able to nail it on the exit as well, the all-important exit, because you pretty much carry that speed through Allard into Campbell as well, as they are near enough side by side. It looks to be that John Cole potentially getting the better exit, has the inside line more importantly, he's going to be able to box him off, shut the door and take P5 back. Well done, John Cole. Some textbook racing going on here, ladies and gentlemen, now as we have the braking zone coming up into Campbell, and there is Will Inglis back involved in the fight, even after that small off over the grass there. Still then John Cole leading these three at the moment. Andrew Brammer splitting the two, so it's margin. It's business as usual. Exactly what John Cole needed, as I mentioned a lap ago. It looked to be there was a bit of a kind of a turbulence and a bit of a change there in the way that he would have wanted it to have gone, but still back how he would have liked it, I am sure. Meanwhile, Jack Hodson getting a position back on Steve Knight there. Steve Knight entering the pits for the hopefully not a retirement. Be a shame to see a retirement from this, the final race in the first half of the year's running, the final race in running for the 147 GTA as well, of course. This very powerful front wheel drive car has been a delight to watch. In fact, all of the touring cars have been an absolute thrill to watch. They've all provided their own kind of unique take on certain British circuits, and have provided plenty of entertainment, that is for sure. As we now have about 0.4 of a second separating Will Inglis and Andrew Brammer. Let's see what he could do to try and close up that gap, currently at the back of this trio. Now at only about a second and a half, really, or about a second on some points, splitting this entire little pack here. And there is Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton, of course, having a bit of a disaster, as he did in race 1 as well. Could potentially get involved in this battle if he's able to close up. There's enough of a pace advantage in his favour. Let's see if there is. If we compare current lap times, it looks to be that he could close up if he so chooses. So he's got about 6 seconds to make in the remaining 7 or so minutes in this race. It's going to be made a little bit easier by that error from Will Inglis. That's not what he needed at this stage. He was trying to put the pressure on, trying to find a way past Andrew Brammer and potentially John Cole as well. And right when it mattered, it's all gone a little bit wrong for him. He's dropped back by the tune of a couple of seconds this time round. A bit of a disaster for him in this race. Two then currently running P7. I believe as he was in race 1 as well. Some good pace on demonstration from Will Inglis, but unfortunately it wasn't to be this weekend. It looks to be. What a shame for him. Yeah, so apologies. I was just having a quick little fact check there, and I do apologise. I've said for quite a while this car is twin spark powered, but just looking at the figures, there's no official kind of engine specification, but it looks to be that it's powered by that 3.2 litre V6. A big heavy engine up front there, but the car still very lightweight indeed, only 900 kilos, with the top speed of about 240 kilometres an hour. So these cars can certainly shift, that is for sure. As we're going to go back on board with the likes of John Cole and Andrew Brammer. What has happened to Andrew Brammer there? That is commentator's curse if ever I have seen it. Apologies, Andrew. Not only have you gone off onto the grass, but you managed to find one of the few bits of obstacle to collide with in the remaining 5 minutes of this race. It's a bit of a disaster for Andrew Brammer. It is going to be, Willingless is going to be able to take that position back, actually, as he joins in for a bit of rallycross entertainment. Have I missed something? Did I miss a memo that we're going to, in about 5 minutes time, we're going to change? We're going to have not just a Joker lap, a Joker end to the touring car running this year, and we're going to see a few cars enjoying a bit of rallycross. There's going to be quite low grip on those tyres at this point, I am sure, but it should be able to collect it back and carry on in a moment's time. But that is exactly what Willingless needed to try and spur him on. And all of a sudden, Barry Clayton fancies his chances at an overtake, I am sure, as we head through turn 1 here. Going to look at a move up the inside, potentially. Who's going to take the tighter line? Barry Clayton just about, but it's going to be very well defended by Andrew Brammer here. In fact, Barry Clayton pretty much echoing his every move, staying in that slipstream, looking to go towards the inside, heading into Campbell, but is too far back to do so. And in fact, there is not a large enough gap to even try and think about doing that. Gap then currently stood at about 0.3 of a second. It is oh so close. So it's very impressive to see how close they have been for such a long amount of, well, not these two, but for how, well, not that it's not impressive, but it's how close some of the racing has been throughout this weekend. And now the gap only about 0.2 of a second if we compare their current pace at the moment in terms of previous lap. Of course, Andrew Brammer's is pretty much null and void given how the previous lap went, but if you compare best pace, they are neck and neck. There's only 0.02 of a second in it. That seems to have been a bit of a collision at some point on the circuit. I believe that is Steve Knight there, as we see the two cars bouncing over the curves, heading through the club corner. Willingless setting an impressive lap time now, 1:19.8. I mentioned that Matt Daly might find his way into the 1:18s. It hasn't happened quite yet. He's currently in the high 1:19s. Let's see what he can do in the final. We've only got a few more laps to go of the touring car running for the first half of this year. Let's see what he can do at this stage in the race. I'm sure, given it's Matt Daly, we're going to see some impressive victory donuts. We should see some from a few drivers, actually. Some very impressive racing this year, and we'll send that off in the usual way. We had some very impressive donuts at Montreal, I thought, so hopefully we continue that on with these front-wheel drive cars. Just whack the handbrake on and have some fun. In fact, given how the back end seems to be very responsive and very eager to rotate, we might not even need the handbrakes. We might just have to rely on physics to do their thing. As we now have Andrew Brammer breaking away just a little bit from Barry Clayton now. Meanwhile, if we look further up the order, it is Andrew Whitehead battling it out with Alan Matthews from about 2 seconds behind, though, this time round. They were quite close at one point, but it seems to be fairly settled. It seems to be a fairly foregone conclusion now that Alan Matthews appears to have the upper hand at this stage. Meanwhile, Rosie Hodgson is looking to have the upper hand on Jack Hodgson in this race as well. I'm still not entirely sure who will come out on top in the AM running, and I do apologise. I really should be professional enough to announce that. I'll try and do the maths in the remaining minute or two, but if not, there will be an announcement on the Facebook page declaring the victor for the AM running. Either way, whoever it goes to, very well deserved indeed. We haven't focused on Matt Daly too much in this race at all since he got the overtake into P1, but is currently running about 8 seconds clear of everyone else, and is responding to my calls for a bit of a push lap towards the end. Has found half a second on the previous lap. Let's see what he can do towards the end of this lap as well. Actually, looking at the torque figure, sorry, I'm supposed to be doing championship maths right now. It's one of my least favourite things. But according to the torque figure, potentially it could be a twin spark that's just a bit tuned up, because the torque seems a bit low for a 3.2 litre V6 of infamous Busso, of course. One of the key selling points of these 147 GTA cars. But let's focus on the racing instead. There's only about a minute to go, and only about a minute left on the clock for what has been a fantastic championship, the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. The accolade of Pro Champion goes to Colin Keneath. The accolade of AMP Championship is either going to be between Jack Hodson or Rosie Hodson. Here too, it has some very well-deserved championships. It has been a fantastic start to the year's racing, and we've only got a little break before it all commences once again. This time around, of course, with the well-known Giulietta TCR, a very competent race car indeed. I'm sure the drivers are looking forward to getting back into that. It's been a little while since we have seen it. In the meantime, of course, we have our Daytona event, our traditional Daytona event, or our traditional endurance event, really, where we get to try something different. We do have driver swaps as well, which is good too. So we are, of course, now on the penultimate lap. Not long to go in this race. We're coming towards the end of the penultimate lap, in fact, so I think we'll stay on board with Matt Daly. No, we won't. We're going to focus on the fact that I believe there has been a position change. It has been between Andrew Whitehead and Alan Matthews right at the last moment in this race. Alan Matthews seems to have made an error and has allowed Andrew Whitehead back into P3. Another podium on the cards for Andrew Whitehead in this race, a 1:19.5 for the penultimate lap for Matt Daly. We'll stay on board with him as he heads round for one last time in this season's running around a lap in a touring car. So heading through Allard, the braking zone up into Campbell now. Looking very well judged, not playing it too dangerously, and by too dangerously, only getting a little bit of air over the curbs here, which is par of the course ready for these touring cars, these GTA Championship cars that we've been running throughout the first half of this year. I'm glad that the exposure issue appears to... Has it fixed itself? No, maybe we've just got used to it. But as we head down toward Noble and Goodwood as well, it has been Matt Daly who has led for so long in this race, has had very little competition. Indeed, has done a very impressive job of leading. It's a shame that he wasn't able to attend all events this year, because much like Andrew White, much like so many other drivers, the competition has really been there for the first half of this season. It really has been a sight to behold. I have thoroughly enjoyed the first half of the year's running in both championships this year. It's probably been the most memorable couple of seasons that I've commentated on. No, I haven't commentated on many, but that doesn't matter now, as we're heading through the club corner for the final time with Matt Daly. He has led for such a long time in this race, has had a decent pace, flashing to commemorate what has been a fantastic season's running. It is Matt Daly who takes the race to victory here at Thruxton. Congratulations, Matt Daly, for what has been an impressive drive all weekend as well. Congratulations, Colin Keneath, as well, taking home P2. There's some good pace on display, and there is Andrew Whitehead will be taking home P3, rounding out the podium. He has had a very good weekend indeed, a race 1 win and a race 3 podium as well. Alan Matthews coming home P4, John Cole P5, Will Inglis will be bringing home P6, Andrew Brammer P7, Barry Clayton P8 as well, looking oh so close to Andrew Brammer as well. And then Rosie Hodson will be taking home the AM race win there. Her championship rival currently taking home P2, and Steve Knight taking home P3. But I do just have to very quickly check on to see if we have any victory celebrations. We haven't so far, but I am waiting with bated breath to give this season's running a proper send-off, as we're actually to go back on board with Rosie Hodson heading through the club corner now, playing it safe by looks of things. Doesn't want to make too many errors riding over curbs there. No reason to DNF yourself at the very end of the race, but Rosie Hodson, after an impressive drive, all championship, I believe, will be taking home the championship in the AM running as well. So congratulations, Rosie, for an impressive drive and an impressive championship as well. And there is Matt Daly, our race 2 winner. And I think we're about to get exactly what we wanted to see here. Is he looking for the handbrake bind? No, he's entering the pits. What a shame there. But good to see a bit of a parade lap, victory in lap for Matt Daly. There's still some battling going on by the looks of things. These two have decided they are not quite done yet. They're wanting a little bit more battling, please. And I am all for that. I would like this season to carry on for as long as possible. A bit of weaving down the straight for Alan Matthews there. I'm not entirely sure the FAA will be pleased with that, although just ask Max Verstappen early on in his career. I'm a big Verstappen fan, by the way, so I don't want any kind of hate for that one. There, as we see the final few drivers on track coming in now to round out the season's running. well, I very much hope you've enjoyed watching this season's running as much as I've enjoyed watching it myself and commentating on it as well. It has been a fantastic set of races to start off the year with. The standard of racing has been fantastic, and there's been some very close battling indeed. So I hope it means that the second half of the year's running will be as good, if not better, as the first half. And that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in a few weeks' time. Thank you very much.